Yehi Adonenu Mareinu Barabeinu Melech HaMoshiach V'Yelam V'Obed Yehi Adonenu Mareinu Barabeinu Melech HaMoshiach V'Yelam V'Obed Yehi Yehi. I'd like to share with Am Yisrael, the whole world, and Mitzvah Hashem, through sharing this. We'll see Gula Shlema come right away. Two and Yonim, two matters of Habash Yisrael that has to do especially with this week's Parshas Noach. We know that Parshas Noach brought the idea of Teshuva to the world, because before Parshas Noach, God was going to destroy the world because the world was made in a way that if it went everything properly, it'd be good, but if it went off the derech, so to speak, off the way, stopped doing what God wanted, they would automatically wouldn't get any influence from God, and that would be destroyed. It's interesting that there's known by tzaddikim sometimes that when they would get in a situation where they were about to do a sin, their soul would leave from them. But anyways, it says, so God created that's why there was a flood, because God said, the world, you guys are not listening. I created this wonderful place for you, this beautiful, magnificent world, a garden of Eden, everything wonderful, and you just did terrible things. You didn't listen to me. You did terrible things. You stole from each other. You bowed down to idols. You just were rotten. So you don't deserve to get anything anymore. So then came Parshas Noach. Parshas Noach is the idea of Teshuva, that when a person does Teshuva, when he returns, when he repents and returns to God, he returns to a level of God that's totally beyond the world. So therefore, God made his covenant with us, with the people of the world at that time, that he will never destroy the world, because the idea of Teshuva is something that's above the world. You reach a higher level. So, in Tafshin Nun Beis, 1992, the last time the Rebbe spoke of Parshas Noach, there was, before I go, I want to tell you a story. So I was in Yeshiva in Ramat Aviv. This is about 10 years ago. I'm 70. I was about 60 at that time. And I was in Kollel, that's a place for married men, but I lived in the yeshiva, and I was like 30 years old than most, maybe 35 years old than most of the guys there. And they were all Israelis, so the Israelis, a different mentality. So between the two, really, it was a wonderful time. I got along great. But there was one Israeli guy who was very strong, a lot of fire, did a lot of good stuff, but a young guy. And, with the Israelis are not like the most, sometimes can be a little bit more curt. Anyways, so I would go and say hello to him, and he'd ignore me. And I went again and said, he ignored me. So I said, why are you ignoring me? He says, because you're a big egotist. And then he said something else. So then what I did is I showed him what the Rebbe talked about, because he's a real chassid of the Rebbe. The Rebbe talked about, the last year the Rebbe spoke about this. I'm just going to read with you now. And when I told him about this, when we learned this, what I'm saying, it's so special, that when you learn something and it affects you and it brings godliness in a revealed way in the world, this is what happened. This is all idea of doing tshuva and loving your fellow Jew. So the Rebbe's talking about that the person that do tshuva, that he has to do tshuva, the main idea of returning to God is in the heart. That when a person returns, he becomes like a complete righteous person, tzaddik. Because these good thoughts that he thinks about will actually happen, that he will actually work on them. So the Rebbe says he really wants to emphasize this concept of doing tshuva. It has to be emphasized, especially between man and your fellow man, Adam v'chavero. Because it's how you treat your fellow Jew, how you treat your fellow human being. This has a big effect upon the world. But and it says that a person is not forgiven, never is forgiven until he pays back what he owes somebody. If I have to do something for you, I owe you some money, or I have to do something and I have to pay you back. And when I pay you back, then you're happy with me. That's the thing. A person a person can get in a fight, but can be upset with God and do something. God can forgive him. But another person, you have to do what you're responsible to do. So he says in here, so this is what we're talking about. This the main thing that we see, idea of tshuva, which is between man and man, and this has a big effect in the world. It emphasizes that we have to change the world, make the world a beautiful place. We have to be wonderful to each other. that it says in reference to this type of law, that person is not enum demkalo olam achiyitin lechaper mashu chayv lo b'yotzeu, that you're never forgiven for it until you give what you're responsible to give to your friend, to the other person, and he's happy. Like it's written, v'heishiv hagazela sher gaza. It says in the Torah that you should return the gazela, you should return what was stolen to what you stole. And similar to that, we also have what's called a refined, very refined, like stealing, gazela, zela dakos. It says, "Shenasan lo shalom below ayaksu shalom gazelas ani b'batechem." So it says a very interesting thing. A poor person does nothing to steal for; he has nothing. So what's considered stealing by a poor person? A poor person does have something. Actually, he has something very special. He can say Shalom Aleichem. He can say, "How are you doing? How is life? How is your family?" And if he says Shalom Aleichem, then in Hebrew we always say Aleichem Shalom, peace unto you peace. So you're supposed to answer back Aleichem Shalom. So this is the only thing he can give to you, and unless you answer back saying thank you so much, how are you? Then it's called stealing from a poor person. Okay. So but the Rebbe says, okay, this is also a case when a person is involved. He doesn't say Shalom Alat back because he's involved in something in the area of mitzvah. He's trying to figure out how to give 10,000 people food or how to set up the shul. He's so much involved in something. And so therefore he's not paying attention. He's preoccupied in doing God's work. But in certain, he didn't really want to like ignore the guy. That wasn't his intention. It was just happening. Nevertheless, because the Rebbe said he made for this person the filos haruach, that the person felt ignored, felt unhappy, felt you didn't care about me, and you just wouldn't even talk to me. I just said hello, and you just ignored me. And he walks away feeling really, really bad. So it says that you have to go and find him and have to say, sorry so much. Even though you didn't do an avera, because it says when you're involved in a mitzvah, so therefore you're exempt from another mitzvah. So therefore, like we talked about before, stealing from a poor person, you're not stealing, you're involved in a mitzvah. So this is what I was pointing out. So I showed this to my friend, the Bachur in Yeshiva, and after I showed this to him, he just smiled. From then on, we just smiled at each other. We would see each other. We didn't talk much, but we'd see each other. We had this really warm, beautiful smile. And this was from the Rebbe. This was from learning and living what the Rebbe says. There's another example I want to share with you. This happened actually to Teshuva based Basalu in Los Angeles, where I daven a lot. I pray a lot there. And this maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe more. I'm praying there, and some guy's praying. He's in front, officiating the services. He's a shliach tzibur, and he's, instead of praying words slowly, and you can think he's praying fast. And it's hard to keep up. We're supposed to pray together. It's hard to catch up, and it seemed like he just wanted to finish and get out of there. And I was getting upset. I said, "Why don't you pray? What's he praying like this for? We're in shul." So this is also in this week's parsha. It's a mimer, it's a chasis dishkot from the Rebbe. The Rebbe's talking about Noach, and in that mimer, the Rebbe says, why does a Jew do a mitzvah? If a person doesn't do it because he wants to get close to God, he says, or because he wants to learn and be respected, or whatever reason is. He was trained that way. He says, that's not the reason we do a mitzvah. The reason we do a mitzvah is because that's me. The essence of my soul, I want to serve God. That's why I'm doing it. Something in my inner essence is part of the essence of God. So I started looking at that, and I said, here, this guy is stopping from his essence. His essence of his soul is praying. And everything, the negativity had went away, and Baruch Hashem, I became good friends with the guy. Anyway, Zaygasut, everybody. So I hope that we should do much more good, and we have to realize loving one another. That's the true peace, the true comfort to God and to the Jewish people. That really opening up and loving and really thinking about each other, how wonderful we are, and how we have such a merit that we can help each other and do good for each other. When you're in an environment, people are nice to each other and serving God, there's nothing like it. It's like So I hope everybody, we should be more and more in that environment, and this should spread like through the whole world. Sei gesund, Yechi Adonenu Malreinu Melech HaMashiach Le'olam Ved.